Welcome and thank you for watching. In this video, I will talk about multiple grouping setups for online classes. There are two topics we will cover in this video. I will talk about design and scheduling of multiple grouping structures along with selecting groups. First, let's talk about using multiple groupings in your course. Structure is important, and you'll want to make sure that you have everything clearly organized and arranged. In my previous grouping video, I used an example of a class of 30. I made 6 groups with 5 students per group. These were called mascot groups. So let's say that I want to add another grouping structure so my students are working with different people. Let's take a look at the Apollo mascot group. I want each of those 5 students to be working within another group. So I'm going to now make a color group. Each of the 5 students in the mascot group will now be part of a color group. In this example, I have a green, purple, blue, yellow, and orange group. You'll want to make sure that if you have anyone in your class with a color difference, that you choose colors that are distinguishable for them. You would then do this with all of your mascot groups. This particular structure works well if you like to use jigsaws in your teaching. So now you have 2 grouping structures: your mascot groups and your color groups. You'll want to make sure that you have a clearly defined schedule so that way your students know which group they should be working in for what class. So for example, maybe it's best for you to have your students working in one group for 3 weeks and then another group for 3 weeks, so they're switching back and forth. Maybe a different design works better for you. Maybe they're going to work in their color groups every 4th week. If it works for your class, you can even have different groups working at different times within the same class. This is definitely an advanced technique, and I wouldn't recommend doing this too early as it can be really confusing to students. So really be sure to set up the structure. You can even practice switching between groups, but I would recommend only doing this if you have a highly organized and sequenced class routine. You can create a third grouping structure if it's appropriate for your course. Again, this can be confusing for both you and your students if it's not very well organized, so this is really reserved for those who have a lot of proficiency in setting up and facilitating groups. I would recommend that you try 2 groups out before trying 3. Now this does lead into the next focus of this video, which is selecting groups. So based on the needs of your course and students, you may want your groups to be random. You may also want to form groups based on work habits. I find the majority of group issues are related to these work habits, so I ask my students to identify if they're work ahead people or last minute people, because the majority of conflicts I've had in the past have related to this area. If your course has a need, you may form groups based on interest area or even grade level or subject area. You can even use different inventories or assessments like the Foresight to form groups. I've used this in the past and it's worked very, very well. There are lots of different ways to form groups, whether it's tech proficiency, by program, skill level, or prior knowledge. But regardless of how you choose to structure your groups, you'll definitely want to send out a poll to your students very, very early in the course to help you in making these decisions. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more videos.